Welcome back, everyone. My name is Sophia Worrell, and yesterday we started to pull the problem apart. So today, let's continue to examine certain parts of the problem. Yesterday, I noted that in order to open up our world, we must read. Life is very basic. It is the execution that is very complicated. I'm laying emphasis on something that seems so elementary that it can be missed. Rooted in life are the most rudimentary things that allow us to gain our footing. It is those things that are unseen which requires the most work to bear us up when we have to launch out. Like the duck who glides smoothly on the water but is paddling zealously under the water is the example that we must follow. The point is that when Jesus came to this earth, he gave us much example of how to live, and in reading the Gospels, we find the secrets to life and living. From a young age, he was in the synagogue among older men discussing the scriptures. Later, as he grew, he spent much time in prayer to his heavenly Father. He called 12 men to assist him in his walk and his work. He spent many hours teaching, and he spent just as much time healing. Yesterday, I dispelled the idea that the European man has control over this world. That kind of foolish teaching has eroded the mind and spirit of people of African descent. Our power is in God alone. He has infused us with the ability to go out and conquer ourselves and anything that arises. There is the notion that has been passed down to us of African descent that we are not to face any kind of barriers in life, and that is a dangerous teaching. In fact, when I was in college, I was introduced to the idea of the other and had no idea of what it meant. As I progressed through my courses, I began to realize that some of my professors were teaching heresy. They pointed out that the white male had dominated the world for centuries and had excluded everyone else from their rights. I actually took a class where I was taught that people with disabilities were also the other because they had a handicap. This kind of propaganda in schools are the reasons why many young people are confused. The problem with that kind of teaching is that students cannot oppose whatever is being thrown at them. Even in society today, we are being forced to take one side or the other, and the ability to debate is and to learn is a lost art. What has resulted is that many people of African descent conclude that to be white is a rite of passage. There is a mindset of an imaginary red carpet that is laid out for these men, and that their paths are well laid out with no challenges or difficulties. People of African descent never seem to take the time to hear the backstory of those men and women who have achieved against the odds. They came up against situations that interfered with what they were aiming to achieve, but they did not give up or allow anything that came up to stop them. The problem is that we give up at the first sign of opposition. We prefer to depend on people to tell us everything and take care of us as though we are children, while claiming that we are adults. We have the bad habit of swallowing everything we are told, hook, line, and sinker, as if it is law. This is why the game of life, as the passage states in the novel No Man's Land, we will continue to be picked up, chewed up, and spit out if we do not become wiser. So I ask you, where does schooling begin? Played out in almost every community where children of African descent go to school are the same scenarios. Educators have been trying to resolve these issues for years, while parents act as though the resolution to the problem is completely out of their control. We just have to look around and we will see that in the schools where many children of African descent are struggling, there's a war going on. The schools are not institutions of learning. There are many prisons and daycare centers. The teachers have to do more quality control than actual teaching because children are being troublemakers rather than conductors of learning. Added to that is the quality control that teachers also have to do with parents. We watch these scenes play out also in the movie on movie screens, and we just turn around as if it is fiction and not reality. And the losers continue to be children who will continue to grow up and carry on these same cycles with their own children. I have done extensive research on people of African descent after they were freed from the fetters of slavery. And I do agree that they were treated badly and that the acts against them were indeed racist. I will not argue that they were discriminated against and there was opposition on every side from evil men who actually placed every kind of trap to trip up people of African descent. This all happened. It was raw and it was real. But as I read those accounts, I began to realize that those European men were not only angry that their free labor was gone, but what also annoyed them was that those free men and women did not get up and go on with their lives. For example, when someone has been freed from prison, the next logical step is to get as far away from the jail as they could. If they're smart, they will refrain from illegal activity and seek to show that they are reformed by living like civilized human beings. So the building process will look like this for those persons who were freed. The first course of action was for those persons who had attained their reading and writing skills through education was to assist the others who did not get that opportunity. These men and women who have been helped to better themselves, now would turn and help their fellow men and women. They had already worked with other European people to end this scourge and had laws passed to prevent this ever happening again. The next course of action would be for those who were free to now form new intimate relationships with each other to build back their family unit, while forming other relationships with their peers to reconstruct their lives. And finally, in this process, they would seek out their own land so they could get in the process of ownership and building their own wealth. The premise was that they would seek out their own dominion instead of these people wanted to get what they thought was taken from them from these men, and that is still being played out today. Let's look at why education is so vital to the lifeblood of people and society at large. We agree that reading and education begins in the home. We of African descent are failing our children because we do not read to them. Although seemingly basic, It is the foundation which will allow our children like ducks to glide smoothly through life. The mother is the first teacher. She's the one to introduce her children to this habit of reading. First, she will take the simplest book of all, and that is the alphabet book. It has all the letters of the alphabet and pictures that starts with the first letter of the image. The child's excitement should not be taken for granted. Just as the child needs to be breastfed, they need to be read to and read with. Over time, as the mother goes over the book, the child gets more familiar with letters and the objects. They begin to identify other objects with letters. This is where the game of life begins, right there in the home, right there with the mother. Later, the mother introduces the child to books with numbers, and the child learns how to count. And now mother starts to play games with the children of guess what the object is and what letter does it start with. She continues with asking the child how many objects they see, and as subtle as it may seem, it is these kinds of activities that are now preparing children for the world. But it's what they will be doing as adults for the remainder of their lives. When the child identifies objects in the home and around them, we are able to count on their fingers and their minds, and the mom says, "Good job." She's not only building confidence in the child, but is reinforcing the importance of learning. The child is so pleased that they want to read more and do not find learning cumbersome because mother makes it fun. But sadly, people of African descent start this process and then fade out along the way. Mothers do not seem to connect the dots of why they are doing these activities, and so they curtail what they're doing without thought as to how they're hurting the child and their ability to compete in the world. Women of African descent are too busy trying to earn a living because they have to support the home. They are distracted doing a duty that they were not meant to be doing, all on their own, and so the child suffers. With the man of African descent missing in action from the home, his absence puts immense pressure on the woman to carry out her true role as mother, and all of this results in the child not being able to function well in the school or society because the place in which they are to strive is already broken. But through this course, we will fix this problem that has gone on too long. There are many of us of African descent that are now being stereotyped with those who are barbaric and unintelligent. Their thug-like behavior is not what we want represented of our culture anymore. That is not God's way. That is not the American way. It is time to build a culture that is peaceful, loving, and kind. Thank you.